Well done. I have something important to tell you. It goes like this. For he did not know that beyond the lake he called home lies a deeper, darker ocean green, where waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I've been. To its ports I've been. Do you understand?
CJ has to bet, and he's also dumb. Even though he's blind, he's not very fun. He has his own talk show, it's every gamer's dream. It's a crazy little talk show, and it's called Cookies and Cream.
Hey there, it's Cookies, and I, as many other fans of Alan Wake, have been counting the days to October 27th, one of the most exciting video games that I've seen in quite some time, and one that I cannot wait to get my hands on as a die-hard fan of the original that came out well over 13 years ago. Remedy is a staple in the gaming industry for unique narrative-driven experiences, and this one looks to just elevate their craft to the next level. Without further ado, I want to break down all the hidden Easter eggs that I saw within this trailer, as well as what seems to be the foundation for how Alan is going to escape the dark place. If you're curious as to what's going on, where Alan is, how Alan's going to get out of this mess, and where he's been, feel free to like and subscribe, or dislike and describe why your theories are more practical. But at this point, who the fuck knows? For the record, this video is going to assume that you've already been well versed in Alan Wake 1 as well as American Nightmare. If you're interested in additional theories and speculations I have done 2 additional videos on this channel, which are perfect for anyone that is curious about where we'll be with Alan Wake 2. First off, I want to stop at this point in the trailer. Graffiti and environmental storytelling have always been huge in Remedy games, including their Max Payne series. We see this opening section where it says around and around. Now, we're dealing with the element of cycles from the first Alan Wake game. Thomas Zane going into Alan Wake is a perfect example, as both of the writers have similar stories, similar situations and callings within the dark place. This around and around may be relating to the endless cycle that Alan Wake himself has been unable to break.
In a horror story, there are only victims and monsters, and the trick is not to end up as either.
I love comments like this because it alludes back to Alan's biggest fear in the first game, was the fact that once he was self-aware of the situation that was going on with the manuscript he was writing, he didn't want the narrative to become a horror story. At this point, he sees that all the characters have been teed up, and the nature of this story is full-on horror. A story where everyone will die and no one will make it out alive. This, of course, is a turmoil that Alan himself is going to continue to fight throughout the game.
But trapped by the genre, we're all ripped to pieces along the way. No!
We do know that Alan himself has a doppelganger, Mr. Scratch, and it's only safe to say that this person walking in is in fact Mr. Scratch. I do have some theories about Thomas Zane and his significance in this narrative, especially with the Control DLC, as well as where we're left off with Thomas Zane at the end of the first game. I also want to add in, with the coffee thermoses you collected in the first game being altered world items that have come into contact with these other planes, you look at the foundation of Coffee World here. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but let's just say there's more than meets the eye with Bright Falls, especially with the relation of the town to the dark place, and those who are aware.
Welcome! We have a great show for you here tonight. Alan Wake, one of my all-time favorite writers, and guests on the show.
He's here to talk about his latest book.
Initiation tells the story of a fictional writer named Alan Wake.
There is so much that happens in the previous 5 seconds of footage, so we're going to just kind of break it down piece by piece. First off, the gentleman that we see doing the talk show, that is Mr. Door, one of the most influential characters in the entire Remedy connected universe, and quite frankly, I'm really intrigued where his character is going to go. Someone that has the doorways to all these various dimensions, if you will. Someone that looks like he's going to serve as not necessarily a psychologist role, but someone that's going to help Alan self-reflect on everything he's going through. Really hyped to see where this plot goes. But more importantly, he refers to Alan Wake as a fictional character. This is a big tell, because for anyone that's curious with the first game, there is a lot of theories and speculations on whether Alan Wake was invented by Thomas Zane, Thomas Zane was invented by Alan Wake, both were invented by each other in this like self-fulfilling prophecy, or neither are even related to one another. There's a lot of ways you can kind of to digest and dissect it, but in this case, it appears the story Initiation is about a fictional Alan Wake. That's a rabbit hole we can go down quite a bit, but I do want to focus on one more detail. The fact that the book itself is Initiation. Now, a lot of people have considered the idea of the hero's journey. There are 3 parts. The first part is Initiation, however, the final part is Return. We know at the end of Alan Wake's DLC, Alan Wake is writing Return. He tried to escape out of the dark presence back into reality, but skipped the original stages of the hero's journey. One idea that has me scratching my head is, will Alan Wake 2 serve as the segue for how Alan finally reaches Return? Or is Alan Wake 2 going to serve solely as the initiation phase for Alan's return into reality? I'll also point it out right now, but a lot of the references to John Wick are readily apparent here. I mean, let's do a one-to-one reference. Yeah, just looking as great as ever, Alan.
Who is trapped in a nightmare, desperately trying to find the manuscript of a novel he has forgotten he has written.
Did you write these pages, Mr. Wake?
I'm trying.
3 amazing notes here. First off, if you look in the background, you see that is actually Sam Lake, who is playing Alex Casey in this. Alex Casey is an FBI agent, as well as a character that was actually written in one of Alan Wake's books, the ones that are iconic for the sudden stop, and what has shot him to stardom. Second, I want to point out that Alan Wake in this picture has his wedding ring on. Such a fascinating detail that even after all this time, he never took off his wedding ring. So that's just like, look, the guy's been trapped in the dark place for 13 years. And if this is Alan and not a doppelganger, not Mr. Scratch, not Thomas Zane, that's powerful. I also want to kind of take a shout out. The outfit he's wearing, a lot of people pointed out, that's the same outfit as American Nightmare. So this goes to show that not only is American Nightmare canon, but this game will take place shortly after American Nightmare, or at least 13 years after.
To remember it's... You're the killer.
2 major notes here. We see Sam Lake again, who is taking on the role as Alex Casey. Now, there may be 2 versions of Alex Casey. We have the one in the real world and then the one in the dark place. This looks to be the one in the dark place because the area is lit kind of similar to New York City. I also want to point out that it is quite interesting that he refers to Alan as "you are the killer, you are the cult leader." It makes me almost assume that Mr. Scratch himself is the cult leader.
The cult leader.
No! You've got the wrong man!
A nice little reference here, you have the script Return by Alan Wake. So Alan Wake at the end of the first game did complete Return. However, something went wrong, which led him to get trapped in the dark place all this time. Pointing it out more clearly, but you can see here, this is definitely a one-to-one rendition of Alan Wake's outfit from American Nightmare.
It's my fault! He got out!
Wake has a double. Where is he now?
One thing I want to point out is Remedy is being a little too on the nose about Alan's doppelganger being the cult leader, aka Mr. Scratch being the cult leader. It seems to be too obvious here, so there's a lot of narrative beats that are being hidden, and Remedy is playing the cards close to their chest on this one. So we transition back to Saga, and this seems to take place at night in Bright Falls. She's popping a flare, so the flare mechanics are going to be back, the cinematic quality will still be there, but most importantly, she has a crossbow on her back, so that's another weapon that's probably going to be a one-hit kill. Think of it as your BFG in horror form. I promise you now, this is going to be the craziest thing I say in this video. So we're going to piece this together. You see that the subway is saying one thing before Alan triggers his light, and then it says something else. It goes from don't to stop. Now, a big part of the first Alan Wake is that pages are being left for him of the manuscript that was being written. Thomas Zane went through and left these pages. Now, I theorized that Thomas Zane could potentially be the major antagonist in this series, someone who wrote himself out of existence, only to realize, existing, not so bad. However, hear me out. This is similar to what Thomas Zane did in the first game. What if Thomas Zane went to a depth so far below somewhere that Alan Wake himself is going to go? And we see here that maybe Thomas Zane is still leaving us clues, trying to help us to keep on going. I do want to add on, this is a very interesting idea too. Now, the dark place itself we see for Alan is New York City. Is the dark place manifesting New York, feeding off of Alan's inner fears of his past? Or is Alan himself projecting New York City, projecting a new reality in the dark place, and now the dark place is essentially getting to feed on it? It's one of those elements where even the first game, you never really knew what was more horrifying. The power that we have over the dark place, or the power the dark place has to kind of like pull as a spider web and trap people in fiction.
It's my fault! He got out!
Wake has a double. Where is he now?
I don't want to be in the story, just write me out of the story.
This line that Alan says further backs up my previous point about Thomas Zane still serving as a good character, as a good source of assistance for Alan. He's right. Alan is talking as if he no longer wants to be a part of this story. He just wants to give in. However, there's a force that's telling him, don't stop in the subway. Thomas Zane succumbed to the dark place, the influences of the dark place, and then tried to write himself out of existence. I see here that he's not letting go of Alan Wake. A part of me does theorize that it could be possible that Thomas Zane is Alan Wake's dad. I've always kind of hung true to that in more ways than one, especially with the ability that Thomas Zane had. We don't really know the extent that he went to write himself out of existence, but I digress. An interesting note and something they left in there on purpose. And that's it for the trailer for Alan Wake 2. This is most likely all the information we will get leading up to the game's release. That final section sounds like the cult of the tree, various members kind of worshipping or bringing this newfound Mr. Scratch into fruition. They comment about how his friends will see the new him when he's gone, that most likely meaning to Mr. Scratch. So that's it. I am genuinely ecstatic. I think the biggest takeaway from this trailer is that Alan will go through an internal struggle to get through the initiation process, but there are forces beyond him that are continuing to help him through the manifestations of his fears in the dark place. He's going to get through it, but I don't think he will without a little bit of help, whether that's from Thomas Zane, his previous friends, or Saga. That's it. Those are my thoughts. If you have any other ideas or concepts, please feel free to comment below. Let me know the vibes. As always, thank you for tuning in, and have a great night, you badass motherfucker.